Hi, ladies and gentlemen. I'm told you are allowed to record these panels, and at the very end, I've got to ask you a slightly strange request. We have a long cable down the front here connecting to the camera, and we have to take that up due to health and safety. We could have taken it down, but no, we have to take it up. So if you would bear with us, we'll remove the cable, and then we have to clear the hall. Okay, that's at the very end. But anyway, ladies and gentlemen, without any further ado, Katee Sackhoff and Michael Trucco. There we go.
Sorry, I'm so... Also, good night. Thank you very much.
Okay. Sorry, I'm so jealous. I don't even know where I am.
When did you arrive?
I don't know. No, I think yesterday.
Michael, you came last night? Yeah,
no.
So.
You met last night. It's Saturday, right?
Did no one get that except me? Yes.
I left on Thursday.
Did you come last night?
Yeah.
Well, sorry that I got that.
And we're off. Are there any children's names?
Thank you. Good night.
Michael, you spent some time in Britain before you were telling me.
I spent some time in London. I actually lived in London many years ago. I was an exchange student, and I came to England and lived just between Paddington Station and Lancaster Gate. Anybody? Westbourne Terrace? Nobody. Okay. They probably told the building
That's not far from you.
No, it's not. But yeah, I was here for about 6 months.
And what were you studying?
I was rocket science. Actually, I took some courses at the Royal Academy of Dramatic Arts, Robbins.
Okay. Did you cross paths with there?
No. The only that I remember, it was 20 years ago. How the hell happened?
Okay. You've been here before?
I have been here before. I bet, actually.
Good. Okay.
Yeah.
So you're used to things about London and traveling beyond London?
No, which is so weird. I mean, a little bit. Like I've been out. The last time I was here, like a couple years ago, or the last time I was here for more than a couple days, my ex and I hired a driver for 3 days and just sat in a car and stopped at all these amazing places that we would never have time to have seen otherwise. It was quite lovely. So yeah.
Okay. Listen, we're not going to hang around because they're all bursting to ask questions, I'm sure. Look at this, hands are up already. I think the gentleman in the sort of orangey coloured jacket there. Aha, in uniform, sir. Hang on, just wait for the microphone, please.
There we go.
Hello, chaps.
Hello.
Easy question. What was your best prop?
What was the best prop?
That's a great question.
Michael, was it your bath?
Yeah, it was my sticky goo and my bald cap. My favorite prop on the show? Oh, you know what? It was those fucking stupid little pyramid balls. Yeah, because that game was impossible to figure out.
We had no idea what the game was. We made it up on the day.
We literally made that up. That was my first day shooting.
Yeah.
That pyramid game, that we played in the show, no rules, no idea, no nothing. Our stunt player goes, just shoot the ball around. I was like, what does that mean? If you play basketball, I can shoot the ball around. This game doesn't exist on paper. So he's like, and they're like, well, we're just going to film a master, so you guys just play on the court. We're like, play what? There's no game. So we made all that up. And so I think about it all the time. I love those little miniature balls. I like small balls. Speaking of small balls.
Sorry, such a every time someone says small balls, I think of that quote from Clueless when she goes, my doctor told me to avoid any sports where balls fly at my face. And she goes, well, there goes her social life. Sorry. Alright.
I saw a video online of you with a beautiful model of a Viper, and you were examining it and turning it around.
Yes.
Breaking bits off it, I think.
Did you imagine? No. That was pretty amazing. It was weird though because I had them on both sides, which I was like totally channeling Angelina Jolie. I'd actually hit myself in the wrist when I ran or walked, so I always had bruises on my wrists on both sides of the gun. But I love them. I actually had them. Like a gun, yeah. I mean, they have the weight of like a real weapon, which we know about in the States.
We're used to on BBC science fiction dramas over here that they made of plastic and they fall apart in the first use.
Right, exactly. Ours actually shot real, like, bullets, and they were actually quite cool. Welcome to America. Here's your gun.
There you go. There's plenty more questions, I'm sure. We've got one over there in the middle.
Hi, Beth. What questions to play with you?
Okay.
What's your favorite episode?
Favorite episode? Classic question. Someone had to ask it. Thank you, sir.
You're still figuring out the
They're
microphone.
gonna think I'm drunk. Not yet.
Favorite episode, is that the question? My favorite episode was my first, episode 4 of season 2. Because then I had a job for the next couple of years. No, I actually, if that's a really hard question, it's almost impossible to answer, so I just think of things that stick out in my memory, and for me it was my first episode in season 2, because I had, now in retrospect, looking back, I had no idea at that time what was going to happen with the character of Anders. I was just meant to be on the show for 2 episodes. I was hired to fall in love with a girl, we sleep together, and then she kicks my ass out of bed, and that was going to be the end of Anders. That was going to be it. And it just expanded from there. So I always have a dear place in my heart for that first episode because I had no idea what it was going to become and what it would eventually evolve into. So that's, for me, is my favorite episode.
Didn't I just get out of the emergency room? Do you remember that? Yeah, we met. My mom was in town. I had an ulcer. And I was out of the emergency room and they let me go and I could only eat bread for like an entire week. And I was like eating up like bagels. Yeah, sorry. Just catching up, just hanging out. I haven't seen him for a while. Mine was unfinished business. I loved the boxing episode and when we get married. Yeah.
That's so nice.
So down here, please. There we go. They're coming for it. So try to keep that. Try turning it off and on again.
Good question.
Just shout.
If you were in charge of taking your characters in any direction that you wanted, what would you have done?
So the question was, if you were in charge and could take your characters in any direction, what would you have done?
Not get bald and be stuck in a tub of goo. I would have done something way more heroic and ass-kicking than sitting in a bathtub with little hairs floating in it. Boy, man, that's such a great question because I put such faith and trust into our writers, you know, who's obviously led at the top by Ron Moore, but we had such a great staff of writers from Bradley Lowe and Michael Angeli and Michael Taylor and all these guys, Jane Espenson, that, you know, you just kind of go along for the ride. I don't think, for me personally, I wasn't upset with any of the story. I mean, like, obviously the whole Cylon development was coming way out of left field, but you just ride the wave. You know, you put your faith, and you have such good writing, and you have such a great creative team. You just put your faith in the process, and I was kind of happy with it turned out. I kind of liked it.
I liked the ending too. You know, people always, it's the one question I get asked more than anything is, you know, what was she? And would I questions, sorry. The two questions, and then, you know, would I change the ending? Because people are so split down the middle, 50-50, about if they loved it or hated it, and there's really no, like, there's really no kind of ambiguity to that answer. It's just people are very passionate about it. And so, I don't know, I wouldn't have changed anything. I love the way it ended. The character was totally cray-cray, which I loved. So yeah, I wouldn't have changed anything. I don't think. Yeah.
Okay. Another one. Right over there.
Hey, so I guess question.
Can we give me security?
Just out of curiosity, this is for both of you.
I'm sorry, what's your name, sir?
Squelcherson. Hey, listen. Some kind of group list of cast members kind of recycled, recurred to the show, and I'm just wondering from each of you, who was your favorite recurring cast member? And you know, take your time with this one.
God.
Nobody comes to mind.
You know what's funny is there was this guy once. What was his name? He's so forgettable.
What was the guy in the beginning that played the old man?
He was an old man.
And then he showed up later?
He's very handsome. I remember that.
He was really old.
That wasn't,
Old and handsome.
Okay.
Which guy, and then he showed up, nobody comes to mind.
Maybe number 6.
Nobody memorable. Oh, there was this Ryan Robbins guy, but he wasn't that good.
No, not that guy. Not that guy.
No, he's a hack.
He was one of our own. Yeah, that's all right. No fans of Ryan Robbins. I don't want to.
That's okay.
No, I don't think so.
All right, well, thanks for answering my question.
That's a really good question, though, sir.
It's a really good question.
I'm a big fan.
Thank you.
I heard Ryan Robbins is here.
He's signing over there.
His table.
Yeah, I went over there.
I can direct you to go.
He was gone.
Okay.
Yeah. I was the only one who liked it.
Do you have credentials? Are you allowed in the building?
No.
Okay.
I love you guys.
Love you too, Ryan.
In case you guys missed that, Ryan Robbins actually played 2 characters on the show. He was the guy in the first, the Armistice Station or something like that. Yeah, where Trisha like blows him up, she kisses him, and then is like, Ryan, dressed up like an old man.
And it was so good they brought him back for an entirely different character. So there you go.
Any more for any more? Who we got?
Any more actors that want to ask questions?
Somebody with arm up over there.
Every time they hand the microphone to someone, I'm scared.
Hi, thanks for being in the show. It's great. I wanted to ask, the show was a product of its time, especially politically, and the further the show got on, it had more of a spiritual aspect to it. And I wonder, did the content of the show, did it make you really reconsider how you felt politically and also spiritually by the end of it?
You know, I think any time that you question a bigger picture in life and things that are going on around you is probably good. So I think it's the only way you can figure out how you feel about something is to be curious. You know, religious beliefs were, I think for me, that's always evolving and changing as I get older. And so the show quite possibly could have had a hand in that, you know. Politically is an interesting thing as well, because I think that we had, you know, Mary and Eddie both have no qualms about talking about their political beliefs and their stance on where, you know, things are going in our government in the United States. And Mary had some scenes, and so did Eddie, that they had a really hard time doing because it was so the opposite of the way that they would feel politically, that they wanted their voice heard, and they had to kind of let it go and realize that another character was going to, you know, and that's the cool thing about the show is that everybody who had different opinions in the world and in our country had someone they could relate to. So it was, you know, it wasn't like it was just like religious or government propaganda. It was pretty much, you know, everybody was kind of represented and all belief sets were represented, which was a great part of the show and the smart part of the show, you know.
was
really, really smart for being so tired.
Yeah, no, that was just to expand on what Katee said, is that I think more and more captured the essence of what was happening globally, especially at that time in the post 9/11 world, particularly in the United States of America. It was very reflective of the, he had a finger on the pulse of what was happening politically and socially in our world, and he was making a statement about war and religion and belief and ideologies. All these concepts that aren't usually associated with a sci-fi show, I think Battlestar Galactica captured beautifully, and it sort of put the genre in a new light. People who were expecting sci-fi to just be pointy ears and lasers and a lot of, special effects came to our show and found something much deeper. And I think, like Katee said, it was impossible for us as actors not to be aware of that and to reflect on your own politics and your own opinion of religion and your own opinions of governments and imperialism and society. And it really, the show took a turn in season 3 that polarized a lot of our audience. When suddenly the Cylon was being represented as this perfect military controlling superpower, and the humans, the good guys, were the ones resorting to guerrilla tactics and strapping themselves with C4 and blowing up recruiting stations, and everybody went, wow. That's kind of the same thing that's happening right now, and that's what we consider the enemy. And it's what Ron was basically saying, what will human beings do? How far do we go in a desperate situation to defend yourself? And those kinds of themes were risky because some of our audience, some of our fans they polarized some people. They were like, hey man, you're turning our good guys into terrorists. And I thought that was, that's the point of art, is to evoke a reaction. And I think we did that beautifully.
Did you fellow cast members, did you have time to discuss the more philosophical aspect between takes?
We were just too busy screwing around. We were always, the show was so dark, there were so many times when everybody would just be miserable now. We just needed to screw around between takes. We had to blow off steam. We just sit around and philosophize too much.
Anyone else? We're down in front here, please. Well, the one right at the back, I saw you. Yeah.
In particular to you, Katee, for such a strong portrayal of the character of Star. I personally felt that she was such an inspirational character. She was so strong, and I think it was quite important and helped a lot beyond.
I just broke my heel off my shoe.
Your question was literally broke her shoes. You said such a strong portrayal of Starbuck, and she snapped her shoe.
Keep going. I'm gonna fix my shoe.
I'm worried now. I don't know.
No, that was great.
Listen, at this point, it can't get worse.
Find your combo.
Thank you. I'll get on with the questions so I don't end up walking up here with a lot less clothes.
I just ripped my pants. Hold on.
I was wondering for you as actors, what was the most emotionally challenging scene that you had to film?
Thank you, by the way. We can't keep you swayed. Thank you, by the way. I appreciate that. I wish that I'd known at the time. Actually, I'm probably lucky that I didn't know at the time what we were creating with Starbuck. I was a kid, Stop it with my shoe. Stop it. Kill him. In the sense that I would have been really scared by the pressure of all of that, you know, and probably wouldn't have, maybe in a sense done as convincing of a job, in a sense that, you know, I was a kid, and I was so insecure, and part of what, I think what was so great about Starbuck is part of what made her strong was the fact that she was very insecure. I don't know, I loved her, and I actually learned a lot from her. You know, I was 21 when I got the role, so for me, you know, I've been acting for quite a while before that, but I grew up on the show. You know, I was a kid, and yeah, so that, and then there was a second part to that question that was an actual question. Oh, most emotional scene. I think the most emotional scene for me was the goodbye between our characters, truthfully. Yeah, it was really heartbreaking. None of that was scripted. I wasn't supposed to, neither one of us were supposed to speak in that scene, and we were just so overcome with emotion that we both talked. And I liked it because it gave them a goodbye, which I don't think Starbuck had with anyone, really. So yeah, I'm gonna fix my shoe while he answers that. If anyone has a hammer, that would be really helpful. Thanks. All right.
Yeah, I would just say that whole sequence in the last season of the show really struck a chord with me. I had an accident in the year 2007. I broke my neck. They incorporated that into the sequence. That's kind of led this partly where the story Anders went. But when I was in that hospital bed, and that scene, having just spent a few months recovering from a broken neck in the hospital bed, the IVs hooked up, that kind of struck a deep chord because that was, it hit a little too close to home. And then that whole sequence led up to where Anders and Starbuck have their last goodbye in that tub. Are we going barefoot now? We can all take our shoes off. Let's all relax. That's what we're doing. So yeah, so that whole sequence, that whole last part of the last season for me.
I wonder if any of the ladies or cosplayers have got any spare shoes that might want to step forward. Maybe. What size are they?
I guarantee you I could go into the gift, like where the shopping area and find some shoes. I'll be all right. My girlfriend is too. By girlfriend, I mean my best friend. I didn't switch teams all of a sudden. Not that there's anything wrong with that, you know, experiment, have a good time. My best friend is with his wife, and I'm sure that she could bring me a pair of heels. It's not going to match my outfit, but that's fine.
We're going to have to wrap it up fairly soon, but there's something you had in common as well. Both of you did guest appearances on Big Bang Theory.
Yes, we did, but I was not naked in the bathtub.
He was the third man in the tub.
Was I there?
Rub-a-dub-dub. That would actually have been, there were two men in the tub, because I'm not a man, so.
That's true.
Could you imagine had you and Callus just popped up from the bubbles?
I think that was the original version.
With snorkels on? I'm done.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Thanks, you got to do a scene with George Takei. What was that?
You know, I grew up such a massive fan of Star Trek, so for me, working with George was like one of the coolest things I've ever done in my entire life. And what I found really hysterical is that we had both stolen our costumes, and no one knew until we wore them on Big Bang Theory that we both stolen our costumes.
Excellent.
Yeah.
And Michael, just to wrap it up, you mentioned that there might be something, a project in the future, or maybe two.
There is a potential, right? Project in the future, right? Katie, my love, yes,
He's trying to get me to admit on camera that there is, because then I might be legally binded.
I would never legally bind you. No, I'm actually helping co-produce a film.
Just illegally binding me.
Just illegally binded you. I am actually helping co-produce a film that we are hoping to shoot sometime near the end of this year or the beginning of next year. And I am desperately on one knee trying to get my lovely co-star, Katee, to join me. So keep your eyes open for something called The Last Transport. That's all I'm going to say about that.
It's a really cool project, so I really want to do it. I'm just not committing myself to it.
She gets a lot better offers, so she's like, hey.
She's waiting to see what the clothing budget's like, especially the shoe department.
I think my character's probably like jean shorts and a t-shirt.
It's like trying to date that girl, and I'm like, yeah, we want to go to the movie. She's like, oh, I would, but I gotta wash my hair tonight. She has a better offer, is what she's saying. So I'm kind of like getting kicked to the curb. But if all else falls through, then Katee and I may be doing a film together. So keep your eyes open.
We'll keep an eye out for the last transport.
That's right.
No, it's going to happen. It's an awesome, it's a really great project.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to thank Katee and Mike.
Thank you guys very much.
I think we should pick her up and carry her. Okay, folks. Could you just wait while we pull the table back, and then I'm afraid we do have to clear the room before the next panel. Thank you. I've got stapler.
taking your arm to the next level.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, those at the back would like to take their seats. We've got our Battlestar Galactica panel, which I guess you've been waiting for. We also got a bit of a surprise really, because yesterday we had 2 guests, and then somebody popped in from the side. Who was here yesterday? Hands up for this panel. Only a few of you, so lots of new faces. Ladies and gentlemen, we've got Katee Sackhoff, Michael Trucco, and Robbins.
Oh my god, for a second I was like, they can see my dress.
Almost.
I'm not right.
Switch them on.
Yeah, hello. Cheers.
Cheers.
Hi.
Yes. Cheers. I'll get a cup of tea.
I'm not breaking my heel today.
Yeah, Katee managed to snap her heel off live on stage yesterday.
I'm going to break her heel today.
Please don't. I don't know if the emergency conference.
So,
You know how we
Those
like,
are
how
good.
we were on like
Every time he stays.
love seat for a second.
3 of us on a king-size bed, just like the old days.
Guys, it's been a few years now,
Yeah, it has been.
and still it lives on, still there's a huge popularity. When did you first get the vibe on the show that you knew that Battlestar was going to work? And
The cover of Time magazine was probably a pretty good one. What was it, Newsweek? Was it Newsweek or Time? It was
I don't
Newsweek.
think
Was it
it was
Newsweek or Time? That's
I
American.
think it was Newsweek.
There was that really awesome moment when you guys did the Letterman show, right?
That was pretty
The
cool.
Letterman Top 10.
Yeah, that was pretty cool.
I always ask this question when people come up, and I always say, did you watch the show when it was running, or did you catch the show on Netflix or in DVD? And I would say, I mean, at least my experience is that it feels like 75% of the people have seen the show in its afterlife.
Yeah.
Because at the time we were running on a network called Sci-Fi in the United States, we were maybe catching 2 million viewers a week. Which,
if we were lucky.
Yeah,
I think we
1.8.
were like 1.2 at some
oh,
point.
maybe. So
It's very, very low.
and that's really low, I mean, even for cable standards. But I think we found better than 3/4 of our audience in the afterlife on Netflix and DVD. And I think that's actually the proper way to watch it uninterrupted, right? Yeah. And so anyway, that's when I realized.
If we could do a straw poll, who first encountered it on first broadcast, either abroad or in this
Did you really watch it when it ran?
Look at that. That's seriously only, that's still 70, so how many people not? It's 70%.
So who got it on DVD?
Yeah.
That's awesome. We just did science.
Yeah.
Oh, that was like a pie chart.
I think there were more people who called it on DVD later. Yeah. In the box set. So, okay, here's the question. Did you follow
We
it?
didn't ask anybody who illegally downloaded it.
Thank you for your honesty.
The men in black will meet you outside. I have that effect on people.
I hope you're all thinking up questions, because we want some. We don't get too many from over this side, they're all over here, so, put your thinking caps on. The front rows are reserved for the gold ticket members.
Clearly people that didn't give a shit. I'll just pay the money, but I'm not going to show up.
There's the ones with the deep pockets, look, there's quite a few here.
There we go. Thank you for being
There we
here.
go, thank you.
You're more than welcome to move over here if you feel more comfortable.
Yeah.
Incidentally, these 2 rows are empty. Just saying.
Okay, what I was going to say was, did you guys follow the show as viewers? Or did you keep up with the storylines other than your own when you read the scripts? How was it? Who was the real geek one who wanted to follow it?
I didn't watch it. No. I watched, it was rough cuts. We had a lot of downtime on Battlestar because the cast was so big and our scenes were so huge, and so there would be days where you would be in 2 scenes but you'd have 8 hours in the trailer, and you're like, what the hell am I going to do? And we would go, ironically enough, one of my best friends is on this trip with me, and we met her because she was one of the assistants to the producer on the show, and we would go and steal rough cuts of episodes out of her desk, and she'd get me so much shit because we'd take a come back and watch them, and then they'll put it, she's like, I need it back, they're supposed to be on there. So I would watch it with rough cuts, with no special effects or anything, just with the acting. So I've actually never seen the series. Never.
I'm the opposite of it, just the nature of how I ended up on the show and in what capacity. After doing the miniseries and realizing how great that was, and you know, I watched it because I was like, well, I'm gonna watch it. I didn't for 5 minutes, but I'm gonna watch it. And I
watched the miniseries, sorry.
And it was great. And then I just got hooked. And everybody on this show, it's a real family. Like, it's a really incredible environment. I mean, we all still know each other, man. I did 8 episodes. We're all still friends, you know. It was that kind of vibe. You look forward to going to work every day. And for me, not having access to every script, I was literally going around asking people for scripts that they still had, because I just wanted to read what was. I didn't care about my character. I was like, what is happening on the show? So my experience before watching it was reading it like a novel.
And each episode did read like a novel. I mean, you'd get those episodes and I would read it first just to see if my character died. Everyone did. Just like to the very back. And then you'd go back and read it again. Because you had no idea what was going on.
What about you? Did you watch it?
It's a bit of both, because I didn't come on until season 2. So once
Have you watched it?
I hadn't, but here's the story. I had read the miniseries because I had initially auditioned for the part of Apollo. And I still, to this day, I've told the story 1,000 times, and I'm sorry if it bores you, but I have a journal entry. That's good. This happens all the time. I have a journal entry somewhere when I came back from that audition, having read the script of the pilot. I wrote, this is probably one of the singular best scripts for television I have ever read, having no idea that the show would become what it would become, and didn't get the part of Apollo, which is probably pretty obvious at this point. And a year and a half later, you know, I came back and I went in for this part, for this character, Anders was supposed to show up for 2 episodes, so I went back to watch season 1 so I could have some reference to what the tone of the show was. And as soon as I got past the miniseries, and I think episode 33 of it was the title of the episode, 33, jumping every 33 seconds or minutes or hours or whatever.
Hours.
There it is, thank you. I had that distinction of becoming a fan of a show that I was going to participate in. So.
Real quick, the other thing for me is I got the first job because I was actually working as the audition reader for the Canadian auditions. So I was in the room with everybody reading all of the other roles, thinking, why do I have to audition for this? And then Michael Reimer was like, hey, you should be in the show. I was like, I totally should be in the show, you're right. Do you want to be a really old man? What? Okay, I'll do anything, Michael.
You get to make out with Trisha Helfer. Done.
Sold!
How much did you pay to be in that? Had you, any of you, seen the original? Was there any kind of feeling of trepidation that, oh, what, they're going to do that again?
No, I wasn't born when the original was on TV, sorry. It was more impressive when I was 20, not so more anymore. It's like I'm in my 30s, no one gives a shit anymore. I had no idea what the show was, and I had booked the role, and called my parents, and I was like, you're never gonna believe this, I got this job, and blah, 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 and I get to shoot guns, and my dad was like, that's awesome, what was it, or what is it? And I said, it's Battlestar Galactica. He goes, you're kidding. I was like, yeah, it's a remake. And he was like, what role? And I said, Starbuck. And he goes, you need to watch this. And I was like, okay, great. So I go and I rent like some whatever. And I sit down with my best girlfriend who was living with me at the time. We were drinking wine and maybe on our second bottle, I don't remember. And all of a sudden we're talking, just chatting, like whatever. And then they were talking about Starbuck and we're like, oh my God, we missed her. Rewind it. Rewind it. And we're like, oh shit. And I was like, I had no idea. I had no idea. So I immediately turned it off and never watched another episode.
I'd seen all of them. Yeah, I was a big fan of the original. Well, it was just, my mother was a huge fan. It was just, she watched the most bizarre shows anyway, and the only TV I was allowed to watch was like whatever was on. that my mom was watching. So I had seen a bunch of it, and when I had heard about the remake, one of the things about playing the armistice officer that I don't think anybody knows is he was actually Box's father in the miniseries. And that didn't actually get shown. And I remember that kid, Boxy, on the original.
Poor kid, well.
And then he was in the miniseries, and then
his voice changed.
And he's like 64.
He literally was taller than me when he came back. And they were like, this isn't gonna work anymore.
Yeah.
Poor kid.
Just in the 6 months or whatever it was between the miniseries and shooting the series, he just had this growth spurt and went from this cute little kid to this behemoth of a man. You're like, how the hell are we gonna do that? Sorry, you're fired. Anyway.
Business is tough. Let this be a lesson to you.
Don't grow.
Okay, let's see. Who's going to be the first one to break the ice? Gentleman there, very quick. Hand up.
That's what we can do. All right. To benefit the camera, away from the microphone. Oh, right. The camera.
You're on TV.
What? We've got a microphone.
You check. That's good.
Benefit of the recording.
Oh, I get the camera. Go ahead.
Switch it on.
Hello, okay. Alright, hi guys, thanks for being here. Katee and Michael, I wanted to ask what it was like filming your last scene together in the finale, and also just over the 3 seasons, how you approached that relationship, like how it changed, and so there's some time jumps in it. And, yeah.
That's a really good question, Michael.
That's a really good question. Just real quick, Katee. Okay.
Yeah, right.
It's just her.
I know, but what?
Yeah, no,
yeah,
go ahead. I was
gonna,
no, but I was.
No, you.
As I totally have this.
I was
gonna, okay. I'll take the last question, and then you can take the, okay. The last scene that we had together, for me, was, I'd read the script, and I had said to Ron Moore all along that I don't care what you So I had said to Ron Moore, I don't care what you do as long as she doesn't like walk off into sunset with Apollo, like, yay, we're happy, this is great. I said, do whatever you want. But what he did was give her like an ending that I was, from my own selfish perspective, for her, I wanted her to be okay. And there was no indication in the script I read that she was okay at all. And it was a weird thing for me. So when we had the scene together, we'd already shot everything else, and I realized that this was my only moment to give her peace. And it became so important to me in that moment to say goodbye to her, and to say goodbye to someone that she loved. And the scene took on a completely different, it really became a completely different scene than what was originally intended. Originally, it was just, she walked in and like said goodbye, and was like, go fly into the sun, peace out. Basically, and it turned into this emotional scene where she basically was like, you realize she's like, madly in love with this man. She knows she's not who she is. It was just this weird, powerful moment, and I wanted her to have peace, and it was this, I knew after we shot that scene that she knew she was going to see him again, and it was fine. And it was weird, and I didn't mean for it to be that, and it just became that. And it made me happy because I was able to, all the questions about Starbuck at the end that we all have, because I don't know either, so don't ask. I focus on that, because she was okay. She's fine. She's fine, whatever the hell she is. She's fine. Okay, now, the second question. If you remember that, because I was...
The second question. The third part first, and then we're going to go back to the second,
and then we'll go back to the first one again, and then we'll just swing it around cyclically.
And we're going to talk over each other.
Is that even a word?
Something about 3 years.
When I came on in season 2, my very first shot, my very first scene was with Katee, and we had to play this pyramid game. You know, this fictitious game that doesn't exist, and we actually had to go into rehearsal, didn't we? We had stunt rehearsal for a day or two, so I was thrust into the show, and I was paired up with Katee, and we had this bond, this chemistry that is hard to capture. You can't fake it. It's something that you hope you have with your co-stars, and it worked. And I was only meant to stick around for 2 episodes. And thanks in large part to Katee, who made suggestions that we should maybe continue to explore this relationship between Kara and Sam.
I think I changed dialogue actually, and then they were stuck with him.
That's pretty much what it was. She just couldn't remember her lines, and that's why I'm here now. Because she's not a very good student. But it's just, you know, all of that, the culmination of everything from season 2, and then I folded into season 3, and then all the way through the end of the show, it all came to a head in that scene, that our goodbye. And that was an extremely emotional scene. One that I had to play bald and in nasty, gooey, gross, milky water. And aside from all of that, there was this incredible emotion that welled up, and it became that scene that you see because Michael Reimer was gracious enough to just keep the cameras rolling, and he's like, "We're just going to just do it again." Katee would walk in and do try something different. She put her hand in the water at one point, and it was electric, and it's one of my favorite moments of the show.
It's a very, very powerful scene.
Sucker.
Love you guys. Anybody else?
Okay.
Is anyone else hot? Just me.
Hi, this is a question for Katee. I was just wondering, I really enjoyed your performance in 24. I was just wondering what it was like to film that show, and how did it differ from filming Battlestar Galactica?
Thank you. 24 was so much fun. It was and will continue to be the only job I've ever done in Los Angeles, which was pretty sad. So I loved it. I drove to work every day from my house. It was freaking awesome. The main thing that's different about that 24 and then Battlestar is that Battlestar, we had long, crazy days. Long days, like 16, 17, 18-hour days were completely normal. And on 24, it was 12. I mean, it was like a well-oiled machine. And not only that, they block shot. So what that means is that they would take 3 scripts, so 3 episodes, where normally 99.9% of the time you do 1 episode for 7 days, and then you switch and you do the next one, so on and so forth. 24 shoots 3 at a time. So for 3 episodes, all your scenes that are in CTU shoot on 2 days. So 3 episodes takes 7 days plus weekends, that's a month. And you work 2 days. But you were in 3 episodes. And it was the weirdest thing because you would forget you had a job. Because you're like, I was just in Mexico for 20 days. Oh, that's right, I have a job. Forgot, I have to go back to work and I'm really tan. So it was, that's a main difference. And I loved that. That was one of the
Your life is hard.
I'm sort of bragging right now. So that was the main difference, you know, and then kind of, the other thing that was crazy is that I had never been the person that comes in, you know, at the end of something that's already so successful, and it's kind of, I was so nervous. I was like, oh, God. Like, these people, like, I hope I don't screw up. Like, I screwed up all the time. It's horrible. I started writing my dialogue on the clipboard, because it was so hard to do, but we used to do that on Battlestar all the time too. We'd write our dialogues in the Vipers on the screen, so every time you see one of us go like this, we're just reading our dialogue. I mean, it was so crazy. So I started doing that on 24, and every time I have a folder or a pad or anything, it's just my dialogue. I'm just cheating.
So Marlon Brando.
I had a child on the sidelines holding up cue cards.
Everybody else's wardrobe was just Katee's dialogue. Katee has a scene with you, just like, it's just stitched in, it's tattooed on your flesh. Whatever gets the job done.
He knows that because he's been there.
Down the back, on the side there.
Hi, I've got a question for Katee. You, obviously, like, you work with Richard Hatch as Tom Carey, and I've heard rumours that Dirk Benedict, who played Starlight originally, and you perhaps didn't get on, and then there's, oh, they love each other, they hate each other, and I just wondered, what is the relationship there?
I've never met a person world that I hate, so obviously I don't hate him. I've only met the man once, so there's really no bond of any sort between us. You know, he was written in at one point, and I think that it was largely kind of understood by us. Granted, I never got confirmation of this, but Richard Hatch was so supportive that when you have the opportunity to hire one person and you've got someone that's really supportive of what you're doing and then someone that's been vocally against it, you pick the guy that you know is going to be fun to work with. So, you know, that's how that decision was made. But I've only met him once and he was fine. Yeah.
So over here, something in the middle there. Keep your hand up, please. Microphone's coming.
Michael, at what point did they reveal to you that you were one of the final five, and how was that for you? Was it a surprise, or did you know that that's where the character's arc was always going to go?
I found out from Aaron Douglas, because Aaron Douglas ruined everything for everybody, because Aaron Douglas always had the inside information before anybody else did. The story is that Aaron Douglas actually stole a script from Michael Reimer while he was at his house for dinner, and he excused himself to go use the loo, and he walked past this end table and he saw these stack of scripts that said confidential for Michael Reimer's eyes only, and of course Aaron goes, well, I gotta look at this. So he did, and he stole it, and he started firing through it, and he saw the list of who's gonna be in the final five, and he came to work one day and he's like, true God, you're silent. I was like, no, dude, you are. He goes, so am I. And so is Hogan. And Hogan's pissed. He's like, Hogan's pissed, and he's talking to Roman right now. So, yeah. So I don't know if you never know whether to believe Aaron, because he was kind of he was sort of the prankster on our set. And then, yeah, sure as shit, it became true that we read the episode that they gave us, I think, a week before we shot it. And for me, it was just utter confusion, because everything that Anders had done up until that point was all about the resistance and all about fighting the good fight and turning into this sort of, you know, freedom fighter and blowing these giant toasters over and suddenly like, oh yeah, you're one of them. So you just killed your family.
Yeah, he totally left me hanging.
Right? I know, you and I were like, we were all part of that underground. And I didn't know how to reconcile that with what I had done for the previous 2 or 3 seasons. So my own confusion as Michael, I just threw it into the confusion with Anders. And so if you look at the rest of those episodes, I just got this dumbstruck, goofy look on my face like, what? And I was terrified of her, because I thought she would kill me in every episode. So that's how I played it.
Good question. Oh, down here. Want to stand up?
Oh no. Okay, so Katee, obviously Starbucks is fantastic, almost role model, kind of the post-Buffy generation. How has that made you feel? How has that kind of impacted on you?
It's given her a huge ego.
Yeah, it's amazing. You know what's funny is that I actually never saw her that way. You know, I saw her so flawed that I never ever dreamed that little girls and women would be inspired by this character, because to me she was like crazy and drank too much and slept around and didn't respect authority, and I saw all the negative in her, and so, you know, it was hard. I didn't understand it at first until I don't know. So yeah, I think that she had just as a big impact on me as she had on everybody else. You know, I used to, growing up, I never spoke my mind. I came from a yes family, you know, like that's, you know, mom was always like, be polite, that's what you do. So as a little girl, I was raised to just, you know, be polite. So I never said what I wanted to say, and then I always played these tough characters, and from Starbuck, I just like realized, like, wow, like she says whatever she wants to say. So I'm gonna do that. See how that goes over. People don't like it at all, really. So there's like a happy medium, you know. So it's amazing. It is amazing that to play, you know, a character that people look up to so much, and it's a lot of responsibility because I'm not her. You know, yeah. Does that answer it? Yeah, and don't do the bad things. Like, don't drink too much. You know, don't sleep around. If you do, use protection. Like, could you imagine? Could you imagine if in the co-ed bathrooms on Galactica they had a condom machine? And she's just in there constantly.
Where the hell are the condoms? Starbucks got them all again. She's having another one of her parties.
And they're Cylon size.
When you walk in, one side of the door is a bowl of keys, the other's like a bowl of condoms. Like, right,
Cylon condoms look like giant mufflers. Giant tubular steel. Anyway, taking this in the wrong way.
Why are there two?
Thank you, good night. She found it funny. Thank you very much. This is a family audience.
Now we're getting started.
It's the beer, it's not me.
Katee, you got to play up to that kind of image that you had as the sex symbol when you did the Big Bang Theory.
Oh, yeah.
And you got to share scenes with another great icon of science fiction there. George Takei. What was that like?
I mean, you know, there's not a lot of people that I get starstruck by. You know, it's Harrison Ford. Like, I think I peed my pants. Just a little bit. a little bit. But with George as well, I was so just overcome. I honestly couldn't speak because, like, I grew up watching him with my dad, and it was like this crazy thing, and he was so sweet and open and funny and so talented, and just funny too. He would open his mouth, and you were just like in the middle of scenes, like trying desperately not to laugh. And I told this story yesterday, so I apologize if you guys were here yesterday, but he and I, in that moment, realized that we had both stolen our costumes from our shows, and nobody knew until we wore them on Big Bang Theory. We were like, well, I guess the cat's out of the bag.
And Mike, you did a Big Bang Theory as well. Yeah. What was that like? What was that experience like?
That was actually one of the most fun shows I've ever done, because all you have to do is stand there, shut up, and let the funny happen around you, because that cast is extraordinarily talented. And it was in the early stages of that show, and I don't think that they had realized, I mean, the show was successful at that point, but it didn't blow up to what it has become now. In fact, the episode that I was in was the first episode that Jim Parsons was nominated for an Emmy. It was the one where he gets, it was that scene that just blew everybody away when Penny gives him a napkin that Leonard Nimoy had wiped his mouth with, and he just went ballistic. And that was the episode I was in, and that was the one when they suddenly now people were taking recognition of the show, and Jim Parsons and his talent.
It was like practice when you had.
Yeah, and he went ballistic, and just watching those kids on that show and watching them work, you knew that there was something special and extremely talented. I was just lucky to get to be
I think Michael just took credit for Jim Parsons.
I had two things to say about that. You did. It was all about you.
Right,
and then also, Ryan was in an episode too. He was in the bathtub with Wallowitz and I. He was just in the...
Ryan was in the tub?
Yeah, he was in the tub with a snorkel on.
Yeah,
just in the...
He was the bubble bath.
It's funny that we've all...
It's crazy.
Yeah, great show, great people. They treat you really well.
Episodes of that show.
I was fun.
We're going to have to wrap it up in a moment.
I was the bubbles.
Ryan, Sanctuary. Just touch on that.
Sanctuary.
Just we've got a minute or so. Just tell us a bit about Sanctuary.
You're so nice. We just want to involve him. Sanctuary was awesome. We managed that. It was fantastic. And, no, it was great. I mean, losing that show sort of kicked everything off for me. I owe those guys a lot. And it was the first time I ever experienced that family environment that we were talking about. And I thought I would never have that again. And I'm not saying this just because, you know, this is a Battlestar Galactica forum, but I saw it on that show, and it's kind of rare in this business because you meet people, you kind of come and go, and it's hard to form bonds and attachments because you're always moving around, and unfortunately shows don't stick around as long as they used to. And when I was so spoiled on Sanctuary that when I went to to see these guys after we've done the miniseries and stuff. And it was season 3 for me by this point. And I tell you, like, just welcome with open arms by everybody. We got to know each other on a personal level, a bunch of us by that point anyway. But just it really, you feel it's a really encouraging environment, really safe, but you feel heard. And in this business, that's a bit rare, especially as an actor, especially when you're just coming in as a recurring role or a guest star. But immediately they're like, so what do you think? What do I think? I think I have a job and it's awesome. Is what I think, and this show is fantastic. But you know, you did know, just to go back to that first question, when I first walked onto a set and we rehearsed that first scene in season 3, it was clear, man, this show was something special. The only problem is now, once again, you know, we've all been spoiled and you kind of hold every job to that standard. It was, I'm like you, I feel like it's like, for me to get that job would be like any one of you to get that job. And it's exactly what you would want it to be. That show, working on that show in this capacity, is exactly what each and every one of you would hope it would be.
That's what we want to hear. Ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together for our Battlestar Galactica.
Thanks, guys.
Michael, Brian, Katee.
Hello?
Yeah, I've just got one more thing to tell you. Auction, final bids starting at 3 p.m. Just a reminder. We now have to clear the room, please, if you don't mind. Thank you very much.